The cliff was already screaming when I got there. Wind tore across the nesting ledge of Korath's spire, and 3 dragonkin elders stood in a circle around something small and shaking on the stone. I heard the word before I understood it. Cull. They were going to cull him. My name is Callum Ward, and I was not supposed to be anywhere near the hatchery that morning. I was a supply runner for the human outpost, nothing more, sent up the mountain to deliver medical crates to the dragonkin healers. But the moment I saw the elders raise their claws over that hatchling, my legs moved before my mind caught up. "Wait," I shouted, my voice thin against the wind. "Wait, don't." The tallest elder, a scarred female named Vesserine, turned her huge golden eyes on me, like I was an insect that had wandered too close to a fire. "This is not your matter, human. The runt is malformed, his wings are uneven, he will never fly, never hunt, never earn a place among the clutch. Mercy demands we end it now." Behind her, the hatchling curled tighter into himself. One wing was small and twisted, folded wrong against his ribs. His scales were a strange, pale silver instead of the deep bronze of his kin. He looked at me with wide, terrified eyes, and something in my chest cracked open. I did not think about diplomacy. I did not think about the treaty between our 2 peoples, or the rule that humans do not interfere in dragonkin custom. I stepped forward and put myself between the elders and the hatchling. "Give him to me," I said. "If he's going to die anyway by your law, then let me try first. If I fail, you lose nothing." Vesserine's nostrils flared, twin jets of smoke curling into the cold air. The other 2 elders murmured to each other in the old tongue, low and fast. For a moment I thought they would simply push past me and finish what they came to do. My hands were shaking. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard I could feel it in my throat. Then Vesserine let out a long breath. "You humans and your strange softness. Take him, if you wish to waste your days on a thing already broken. But know this, Callum Ward. If he dies slow and suffering because of your foolishness, that blood is yours, not ours." I did not wait for her to change her mind. I scooped the hatchling into my arms. He was lighter than I expected, trembling, his small claws digging into my jacket. I turned and walked down the mountain path without looking back, my pulse roaring in my ears the entire way, waiting for a voice to call me back, for a claw to catch my shoulder. None came. By the time I reached the outpost gates, the hatchling had stopped shaking and simply lay still against my chest, eyes half closed, breathing shallow. I did not know if he would survive the night. I named him Ash, for the pale gray of his scales, and I carried him straight to my quarters, a narrow metal room with a cot and a heater that barely worked. I laid him on a folded blanket near the vent and knelt beside him, trying to remember every scrap of biology I had ever picked up from the outpost medics. He would not eat. I offered him strips of dried meat, warmed broth, anything I could find in the ration stores, and he turned his head away each time, his small chest rising and falling too fast. 2 days passed like that. I barely slept, checking on him every hour, terrified I would wake to find him gone. On the 3rd night, I gave up trying to feed him, and just sat beside him instead, talking quietly, telling him about nothing in particular, about the stars outside the window, about the sound the wind made against the hull. I do not know if he understood a single word. But somewhere in the middle of my rambling, he opened his eyes and looked at me, really looked, and shuffled closer until his small, twisted wing brushed my hand. That was the moment something between us changed. After that, he began to eat, slowly, cautiously, always watching my face as he did. I rigged a heat lamp from spare parts to keep him warm through the freezing nights. I read every scrap of dragonkin physiology I could find in the outpost archive, most of it written for creatures twice his size, and none of it built for a runt with a crooked wing. I improvised, I adapted. I made mistakes and fixed them, and made more. Word spread fast through the outpost, and not kindly. Some of the human staff thought I had lost my mind, wasting rations and risking outpost relations over a creature the dragonkin themselves had condemned. Worse were the messages that came down from the spire. Dragonkin scouts visited twice, circling the outpost at a distance, watching. One evening, a young dragonkin named Tarisk landed just outside the perimeter fence and called for me by name. "The elders are displeased," he said, his voice flat, almost bored, as if my choice barely mattered to him. "They say you delay the inevitable. They say it would be kinder to end this now." "He's stronger than he was a week ago," I said, standing my ground even though my hands were cold with fear. "Give him time." Tarisk tilted his head, studying me the way I imagine a scientist studies an unusual insect. "Your kind is strange, Callum Ward. You spend yourselves on things with no value. It will not save him, but it is curious to watch." He left without another word, and I went back inside to find Ash awake, watching the door with wide eyes, as if he had understood every syllable. The weeks that followed were the hardest and strangest of my life. Ash grew slowly, his twisted wing never quite matching the other, but his strength built day by day. He learned to trust the sound of my footsteps, to nuzzle against my hand when he wanted warmth, to chirp a strange rasping sound that I eventually understood meant hunger. I taught him to hunt small game near the outpost fence, patient and endless afternoons of failure before he finally caught his first rabbit on his own, tumbling over himself in his excitement, and I laughed until my ribs hurt, the first real laugh I'd had in months. Then came the storm that nearly ended everything. A pack of ridge wolves, driven down from the mountains by hunger, broke through the outer fence one night while I was checking equipment near the supply shed. I heard the snarling before I saw them, 3 shapes circling in the dark, teeth flashing in the moonlight. I had no weapon, nothing but a maintenance wrench in my hand, and for one terrible second I thought this was how it ended. Then a shadow dropped from the roofline above me, wings snapping open, one crooked and one straight, and Ash landed between me and the wolves with a roar that shook the frost off the nearby rocks. He was still young, still smaller than a grown dragonkin by far, but he was no longer the trembling hatchling from the cliff. Fire flickered at the edges of his jaw, unsteady but real, and the wolves scattered into the dark, yelping, unwilling to test whatever he was becoming. I stood there shaking, staring at him, and he turned to look at me with those same wide eyes from the mountain ledge, except now there was something new in them. Not fear, pride. Word of that night reached the spire faster than I expected. 3 days later, Vesserine herself came down from the mountain, landing outside the outpost gates with a weight that shook the ground. I walked out to meet her, Ash at my side, his crooked wing held high, no longer hidden or ashamed. She studied him for a long moment, circling slowly, taking in the fire scars still faintly visible at his jaw, the strength in his legs, the way he did not flinch beneath her gaze the way he once had. "This is the runt," she said finally, not quite a question. "His name is Ash," I said. "He drove off a wolf pack 3 nights ago to protect me. He hunts on his own, he flies, even if it isn't pretty. He is not what you decided he would be." Vesserine's golden eyes moved from Ash to me and back again, something unreadable in them. "Our ways say a creature's worth is fixed at hatching. You humans seem to believe worth is something built, day by day, through choice. I confess, Callum Ward, I do not know which of us is right." "Maybe it doesn't have to be one or the other," I said. "Maybe some things just need someone willing to give them a chance." She was silent for a long moment, wind pulling at her scales, and then she dipped her great head, not quite a bow, but close to one. "The spire will not trouble him again. What he becomes now is his own path to walk." She turned and launched herself back into the sky without another word, leaving only the echo of her wings. Ash pressed close against my side, warm and solid and very much alive, and I put a hand on his neck, feeling the steady rhythm of his breathing. I never set out to change anything that day on the cliff. I only knew I could not walk away and leave something living to die, simply because others had already decided it was not worth saving. Maybe that is the strangest thing about us, about humans, the thing other species still do not fully understand. We do not always calculate what something is worth before we decide to fight for it. Sometimes we just choose to hope and trust that the hoping will be enough. And sometimes, against every cold rule of the world, it is.